Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors, find out what got them to where they are now, get insight into their daily habits, and take these insights to inspire your own growth? Each week, Jonathan Green shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor, advisor, and coach, as well as the founder and team leader of Streamlined Properties. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, Jonathan seeks to provide a free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Welcome back for another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. My guest today is Lindsay Davis of Spartan Invest. We're talking turnkey. And we're also going to go back to how she got started. It's a great story, and it's right at the front of the episode. But what Spartan does is unlock your legacy with turnkey real estate. You're going to find out all about turnkey, how she got into it, and how she keeps doing it every day, right now. This is episode 272 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Lindsay Davis. Lindsay is the CEO of Spartan Invest. They provide single-family investment properties at reasonable market prices, aka we're talking turnkey. Lindsay, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. And turnkey's been something that I didn't think about when I was younger because my dad was a local investor. But the older I get, the more interesting these more passive investments become to me. But you didn't start in turnkey. Am I right that your first investment was a collab with your parents just to help you get into the college that you wanted to get into? Am I right about that?
That's true. Well, I was actually in the college. So originally I'm from Georgia and moved. And
tuition reduction?
Tuition reduction, yes.
Smart.
I moved to the University of Alabama, and that was the only way to gain residency. So if that says anything about real estate, it was cheaper to purchase a property in the state of Alabama and establish residency than it was to pay additional years of out-of-state tuition. So again, I was a terrible landlord. Very, full transparency. It was awful being a tenant and also a landlord.
Yeah.
In your college years, I was not responsible at all. However, it definitely, it showed the benefits of it. The people that I was renting out the rooms to throughout college was helping me. Now, it was helping me not, establish a retirement fund and diversify more my portfolio. It was helping to fund other ventures in college. However, it still proved the same benefit.
Yeah, but again, like you're saying, it goes to show the benefits of real estate, and especially now with college costs rising, this just makes more sense. So we've had a lot of people, a few, maybe over these 272 episodes, maybe 5 or 6 who've done this strategy in college. Some did it after. But did you have any idea what you were doing? It just sounds like a great idea. But you're in college and you're like, this just sounds great. My parents and I are going to get a house, just get my friends to move in. It's not as easy as everyone thinks.
No, it's not as easy as everyone thinks. And being a landlord, if you've ever managed, especially if you're residing in the property and also being the landlord, that's a combination that no one wants.
Yeah.
And so, no, I didn't really know what I was doing. It was a learn as you go kind of thing. And then I took a break from real estate. Once I graduated, I started in the corporate world, and it was about 5 years until I ventured back into real estate and real estate investing. So, but still, I would say that was my first toe dip, and the lessons were the same.
Yeah, but I found that it's great that you got the toe dip, and you I'm sure you recognized at the time, like, hey, I'm just paying down my costs. Like rent's coming in. This seems like a good business idea. So then when you come back to it, did you realize like you had a little bit more experience than you thought? That's a lot of experience to not only live in and take care of the house, but also to be an on-site landlord and deal with tenants that are also sharing a fridge.
Yeah, that was really fun, especially at that young age.
Yeah.
But I will say, though, that even starting in real estate, we really started more on the flipping. So even having that experience I was a little jaded by it, by being the landlord. And we have a lot of investors that do this. They'll try the one property and they'll purchase that one property and something goes wrong. And they've washed their hands of real estate for its entirety. And I think that would have been a very easy path for me to take as well, is because it wasn't fun. I didn't have a great experience. However, looking back, and even then, like I said, the income that I was producing by renting those properties was allowing me to not have to work as many shifts as I was currently working. I was able to kind of scale back, increase my class load, graduate a little bit early. So there were a lot of benefits that I was able to get from that, but not washing my hands completely of it, I think is a really big takeaway for any investors maybe wanting to start out, is that don't get burned, don't get scarred if you have that one bad experience.
Yeah, and we'll go through the journey from flipping and how you got to turnkey. But turnkey is really the solution for that investor that you're talking about, because they can get a rental property and not have all the headaches of I hated being a landlord, even though my dad, trained me to be a landlord. I just personally don't enjoy it. So when you go in with management, I think when you're new and you want the cash flow, you're like, well, I don't want to pay that 8 to 12% or whatever it is. Right. But then you realize you're going to hate it much more than 8 to 12% of your life. So you might as well figure it out. Is that part of your overall philosophy and like the avatar for who you guys are looking for at Spartan?
Well, we're looking for all different types at Spartan. And so basically, just big picture, what Spartan does, full service turnkey, is we're handling everything. So we're out there finding the properties, and we're in Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. So we're finding these properties, doing renovations to them, and then going ahead and placing a tenant, selling those to investor clients all over the country, the world. And then we have the property management company that manages them after the fact. And it is the same company. It's a separate entity. However, we're all in the same building. It's your basic one-stop shop. So we're here to send mailbox money or provide mailbox money for investors wanting real estate. And so for those, like you said, for those that start managing their property on their own, you'll find out very quickly why the 8 to 10%, we charge 9%. So we're right there. Why that is so important.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is, like, whatever the percentage is, if it takes all of the pressure off of you and handles everything, it's always going to be worth it.
Right.
But there is this thing that I think that newer people, especially getting into turnkey, need to realize, that you still need to be in touch with the manager. I always call it managing the manager. You guys have a professional setup, but sometimes people get a one-off, in like Peoria, Illinois, and they hire a random property manager because there's, who wants just one unit. And then they don't manage them, thinking it's a big company like you. And I think that's something they need to be aware of too, that you still want to be a participant just so you can stay on top of things. Am I right about that? And how is it for you guys across the board?
Yeah, absolutely. You would want to do that with any type of investment that you make. Anything. If you've got, if you're investing with, let's say, a Raymond James and investing in your 401k and in the stock market, you're having meetings with them and reviewing the performance. I would strongly urge anybody who's purchasing rental property, even if it's with a turnkey company like Spartan Invest that is going to handle everything for you, please don't, hey, wash your hands like, okay, I've bought one, I'm good now, thanks. Make sure that you're monitoring it. And we do certain things to help you monitor, but also making sure that you're aware of just how your investment's performing in general. That way, hey, like if you need to pivot, or if the cash flow is able to pay down a little bit more principal. That's kind of the goal that we coach with investors. You take the income of the 2 to 3 purchases of those properties, you take the cash flow, you buy down, or you pay down one principal, et cetera, kind of the snowball effect to pay off more. Those are things that you are going to be able to strategize as long as you stay in the know with how your properties are performing.
Yeah, and it gives you the advantage of trying to figure out how you can get more quicker, but also not having to do the management part. And a lot of times, if you guys, obviously experience, you're placing the tenants and the tenants is also, you might really not have any problems because these are renovated properties. So you should be low on CapEx. Tenants should be vetted. Of course, anything can happen with a tenant. They could just go through a divorce or something, could happen, lose a job. But generally, it should be more passive. But as we're both saying, you still want to stay in touch just so you have more of an attachment to the property, not from like an emotional side, but hey, this is a good investment. You want to watch it grow and see when you can get another and build on it.
Right. And we usually have investors that are all across the board. So when you ask kind of, hey, who is our target investor? I mean, it's everyone, and they all have different mindsets on how they want to be involved. So our investors that come to Turnkey, they're either, they're W-2 employees that are just wanting to diversify, or, they're somebody that is always been interested in real estate investing, but may live in areas where it's not necessarily conducive for you. The yields are not there. If you're Southern California, New York, the numbers don't tend to work out for rental property investing. So those type of investors, and I lost my train of thought just then that quick.
No, because you were saying, we were talking like, hey, somebody
so
in LA,
sorry.
They can't get a rental property in LA.
Right.
So they're going to look for something that really is easier. So, diversifying who those investors are for you, which is always interesting to me, because in a lot of business, you think there's kind of like a strict avatar, but something with Turnkey can really provide opportunity for so many people. And in my opinion, I really see it as a great option for high earners who aren't going to buy a primary home now, because maybe they're going to go, but they have disposable income that they want to earn more on and get an asset. Are you seeing that more and more now with home prices across the country in general high? There's just a lot of people who are going to continue to rent out of, kind of making a smart decision, but they'd still like to get into real estate.
Yeah, well, we've seen that trend just in general, overall in occupancies, that the shift away from home ownership.
Yeah.
And, it started with the millennial generation that saw the Great Recession and moved away from home ownership because they were coming to their professional careers or had just entered their professional careers at a really rough time. So we already saw that trend happening. And then of COVID, of course, just exaggerated it. It really blew it out of the water. So I think that trend is going to continue. However, we are seeing more and more the younger clientele coming to us, go ahead and laying that footprint, which is fantastic, because if there is one thing that is consistent among every investor that is over 60 that reaches out to us to try to start building their portfolio, is I wish I would have started this 20 years ago. That is the name of the game. That is exactly what they all say, is I wish I would have started this 20 years ago. Look what I would have been able to build, or look what I would have had if I would have bought just one property a year.
Yeah,
I would have 20 properties. And, and we have some investors too, they're when they have their first child, they're going to go ahead and purchase a property. They're going to take out a 15-year note. Yeah, absolutely. And then when their child turns 15, that's their college fund. So we're seeing both of them. We're seeing just a big shift away from home ownership in general. And then we are seeing a shift of the younger generation already toe dipping into real estate investing, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's really smart, and it's accessible, because in these 3 states, Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia, what's like your general average price point, of course, across the board for these turnkeys, if it's just a turnkey single family?
Yeah, across the board. Now, we also do new construction, so that price point is a little bit different. But just for the renovated turnkey properties, our average sits at about $165,000. Yeah,
and these are like 3 1s or 3 1.5, 3 1.5.
Usually they're about 3 2s. Our 3 1s tend to run under 150,000. So, it depends. It depends on size and year built and stuff like that. But those are our averages. So you're looking at 25% down, and that's to lock in our forward commitment of 5.5% interest rate, which is what we offer. So you do have to do the 25% down, but just 25%, and you're in the door with your first property.
Yeah, so 25% down with you guys will get you 5.5 interest rate on the loan.
Correct.
Yeah, that's awesome, especially in a time when, historically rates aren't terrible, but I can't tell that to younger people. They're just,
cannot. No.
Yeah, but I don't even like it, because I'm out always looking, and I'm like, I don't really want this piece of junk for 8% on a DSCR loan. So that does give a good opportunity, but that's also about your integration with the whole process that makes it easier at volume for you to offer these type of opportunities, right?
Right, absolutely, and it's something that new home builders have been doing for decades and decades, and it's just something that recently became available. I think we did our first one in 2023, where we were able to just bulk buy it down, and because we have that volume, we're able to offer that, because you do have to buy the loan amount at least over $500,000. We've got to pay for it up front, and for whatever reason, if we don't use it, we stand to lose that amount of capital if it doesn't close within the allotted time frame. So it's a big risk.
Yeah.
But given our volume, it does allow us to pass that savings or pass that 5.5% interest rate to our clients.
Yeah, and it's not just the volume of the properties available, it's also the volume of opportunities that you have for people coming in by, your outreach and other people on referral, because you need the funnel on both sides to be good at turnkey. If you're just good at getting properties and you don't have enough buyers, you run into a lot of problems. You'll be holding instead of, transitioning. Right. So are those sides both as important? Finding the houses, of course, because that's going to be the asset, but then also finding the right people who I assume will be repeat customers if it goes well for them.
Yeah, I think both avenues are equally strong. One doesn't exist without the other. Yeah. So I think that both are very strong, and they're both completely separate marketing strategies.
Yeah, exactly.
And funnels. And so very, very different methods in which to target homeowners and tell them, hey, we can purchase your property for cash, and you can avoid the agents, et cetera, that type of marketing versus the, building your financial freedom, right, and purchase the rental properties, et cetera, on the sales investor side.
Yeah, I liken that to people who are getting into wholesaling, and they always say, well, what should I do? Get properties first or get a buyer's list? I'm like, yes. What
exactly.
If you have properties and nobody to buy them, you're out of luck. And if you have buyers and no properties, you're out of luck. So, but again, it takes time to do both. And as you said, they're completely different strategies and different dialogues and different scripting to do. So let's go back though, because I know you didn't start turnkey. You started into flipping. What led you back into real estate after your, somewhat nightmarish first landlord opportunity?
Yeah. Right. So, this was back in 2010, 2011, and we were flipping houses. It was just me and a business partner, and we decided to leave our corporate jobs, take the risk, jump in before marriage and kids. So we, didn't have as much on the line. It was a little easier to take the risk. I always like to preface it that, but still deciding to do that. We were doing your HGTVs, staging properties in your A+ areas in the Birmingham market. But even still, things didn't move that quickly in those years. It didn't matter how great the granite countertops were or anything like that. The properties just took a little bit longer to sell. And so kind of in a panic, we went out and purchased about 30 rental properties. They were in very poor condition. They were super cheap because we purchased them from foreclosures. No, we just started buying foreclosures in the rental space, not necessarily the owner occupant flipping space. And so we were accumulating some rental properties, started managing them. We didn't do an extensive renovation to them, not anything compared to what we do now. But then that's kind of when it came together. Like the rental revenue from our portfolio was paying our bills. It was paying our payroll. And, coming from, hey, if we didn't sell a property that quarter, we didn't make any money, to now we've got the lights on and everything's fine because of this rental revenue. That's really when we just decided to make a hard shift and saw the value more in the rental space, started the property management company, and just did a full shift.
Yeah, it's the difference between singles and home runs. When you're flipping, you're just waiting for that big home run, and it is a letdown. Even when you get like a triple, you're expecting 500, you get 480, and you still make, 80 grand. And everyone's like, why are you upset? And you're like, well, I really wanted 500. But rental, it's hard to see though, because when you start with just a couple, like it's just trickling in, and then you have to, you need a new refrigerator. There goes, 3 months of income there. I'm sure the properties that you were buying at foreclosure at the time back then, these were pretty cheap. So again, similar to what you said, how you were going into business as both before families, when you're buying these foreclosures and you have the money, it's pretty little risk because you're owning the real estate and the building there. Not much can really go wrong if you're getting it at the right price.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as you've done your basic due diligence of, hey, I've evaluated the property and whether it's vacant or not, what needs to be done. And even if the renovation is extensive, let's say that you do go out and you buy a foreclosure, which again, that's not at all what Spartan does. We're already doing all of that for you. But if you do decide to go, I'm going to go and roll the dice, go to a foreclosure, purchase a property, yes, you can miss the renovation budget and you can miss it very bad. But at the end of the day, you still own the asset that will eventually cash flow, so there is that level of security and stability that comes with rental property.
Yeah. And I was thinking as you were saying that just about flipping, I mean, because most of us don't really like being a landlord. You didn't. I didn't enjoy it at all. And I managed a lot of properties. But also with flipping, I flipped so much in my life, and I'm sure you have too. But when you finish and you do well, it's the best thing ever. But every day while the flip's going on, I hate every second about it. It's awful. It's cool when a tile goes up in the bathroom, then you're excited again. And then they're like, oh, wait, there's an electrical problem. And you're like, I hate this. Why do I do this? So it's nice to know that part of this turnkey process involves a flip property, but you don't have to do anything about it.
And you don't have to do anything. And if we miss the renovation budget, and I get asked this question a lot, it's like, okay, well, what if if you're evaluating the property and you miss something on the renovation budget? Well, all of our properties are sold based on what the rate of return is going to be. So it's based on what the property is going to rent for. So if we purchased the property and when we purchased it, we said it was going to cost us $40,000 to renovate, and it ended up costing us $52,000. That $12,000 is just what we eat. That we can't go back and increase the sales price to the investor. And so assuming that risk is huge, especially those investors that may not have ever purchased or done a flip. Like you said, you've done tons of them, there's an electrical problem. There's this, there's a plumbing issue that we didn't foresee, et cetera, et cetera. So the contractor poured concrete down the pipes. There's a million different things that can go wrong. And so we're assuming that risk. Right. We're kind of taking that on. But you're right. The flipping method, it's really fun to go in and do the interior decorating. Now, not for me. I am not that decor person. We have people here that are like, okay, you pick together what colors look good. I'm not that person, but it's enjoyable, right? To bid on foreclosure steps and do all of this process, but it's a grind. It is a grind until that property is sold. And that's another issue too, is like if you're selling to owner occupants, those contracts are always up in the air. They fall through at a higher rate than investor contracts and stuff. So it is literally a grind until you get the check.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of understanding it. That's why these processes exist, to make it a lot easier for people. But as you were talking, I was thinking of something. When are you selling these in the cycle? Because I know some turnkey only sells after they're fully renovated and then the tenant's in there. Are you selling them earlier in the cycle to people so they can know what the budget's going to be, and then you go through with it after it's already been sold?
So we don't sell anything until it's completed. Okay. So we've already done the full renovation. Now, most of our properties are rented before they close. Yeah. Now, our new construction properties, we do have some investors that'll go ahead and put it under contract when we're in the construction process. Yeah. But I think right now on our website, we have 10, maybe 11 properties that are already fully renovated and rented and ready to go.
Yeah. And what's the differential on the price point for the new builds?
Our new construction, it can range. We have new construction in North Alabama, everywhere, so again, that varies. Right. But anywhere from $240 to $280.
Yeah, and since you're in the South and weather has become more of an issue, not as much in those three states, but certainly nearby in Florida, are the insurance rates better for the new builds than for the older renovations, or are they pretty comparable in those three states?
They're fairly comparable compared to other states, but new construction insurance is substantially cheaper than renovation. We saw that increase just in general with cost of construction and labor materials over the last 5 years increasing. They were a little bit closer in price pre-COVID.
Yeah.
But, now it just costs more. Everything costs more. And so your renovated properties are going to be a little bit more expensive, but still nowhere near where Florida is currently residing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah. I feel bad for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. But that's a great opportunity for you, though. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities in Florida, but there's also more weather potential there.
Mm-hmm.
So it can lead the shift for people who want to get into it and say, like, okay, well, also the prices are going to be higher in Florida, not in all parts, but in general, to go in and like get into the South where the prices are good. You don't have a ton of weather anomalies right there. So that can really give people a little bit of peace of mind. I mean, I was under contract on an investment property, near Asheville, thinking like, hey, I found nothing ever happens here, and then boom, there's a big flood. So it can certainly happen anywhere.
Yes, it can. Yes, it can.
Hey, it's Jonathan. I hope you're enjoying this episode with Lindsay Davis. And if you're already interested, like I was and am, in Spartan Invest, you can go to spartaninvest.com, shop properties, and what happens once you register is you'll get emails from them with properties that are ready to go, and you can actually get them. I've been looking, and I'm close to pulling the trigger. Maybe by the time this comes out, I will. I'm not sure, but if you want to get in on it, go to spartaninvest.com. Let's get back to Lindsay. So when you decided, hey, this rental game is a little bit better than flipping, did you just stop flipping altogether? Because it's when you get into turnkey, flipping's part of it. It's just with a different intent.
It's with a completely different intent. And like I said, when you're flipping to an owner occupant, you're looking at comparables. You want to make sure that the property appraises. You want to make sure you've got your market appraisal already on lockdown. You need to know what the market value is. Now, we do that on the rental side as well. However, our whole analysis is based on what the property is going to rent for, because that's going to determine the overall return. So yes, it's different. And again, we are not doing the fluff. Everything that we do on the construction side is trying to make the property as investor friendly as possible. Yeah. We call it our 3 M's. And what that means is any renovation that we're doing, will a tenant pay more for the property? Is it a safety must? And will it drive down the long-term maintenance of the property? So our roofs, if they're older than 5 years, they're getting a new roof. Brand new water heaters, granite countertops, new flooring, absolutely zero carpet. So those type things that we're doing to make sure that we're trying to keep the maintenance of the house as low as possible. For the foreseeable future, things happen. I don't want to paint a picture of, hey, you buy a property from Spartan Invest and you're never going to have maintenance. I definitely don't want to paint that. But we try to mitigate that risk as much as we can.
Yeah, and as we were saying, it's just a different thought process when you're renovating those properties, because when you're renovating for sale, you're trying to go as high end as possible. Mm-hmm. You're really making things look as good as possible. And with a rental, you want it to look good, but it has to be durable, because if it's not durable, it's more calls. So maybe you don't put down hardwood floors, you put down LVP, which look like hardwood floors, and the renters, get good wear and tear out of them. And if there's water on them, nothing happens. These are the things that's why it's interesting for people to learn though from it, because if you go in, I've seen a lot of flips even in nice neighborhoods, and then they're using what I consider to be like, this looks like a rental. There's a difference. Not that rentals aren't nice, it's just more durable. You make different decisions.
Absolutely. There's definitely a difference. And so we did pull completely away from flipping. And one thing that we want to focus on, Jim Collins, big fan, hedgehog concept, and where it's, hey, you make sure you're the absolute best at the one thing that you do. So that was really the reason why we shifted full speed. Goodness gracious, I'm having trouble talking. We made a very hard shift to the turnkey space and wanted to focus and be the best at that. Now, I will tell you that on the few times, we come across hundreds and hundreds of deals. Yeah. And the few times we've come across ones that you're like, oh man, this one would be a great flip. Yeah. We could crush this one. It always ends up looking like a rental. and it doesn't do well.
Yeah.
It's not in our wheelhouse. We are just not the best at flipping them on market. Now, if I could have my construction manager and acquisitions team, if they could focus on that solely, then they would do an amazing job. But that's not what they focus on all of the time. They focus on the durability and the tenant. So it never fails. It always ends up looking like one of our rentals, despite best efforts.
Yeah, and that makes a big difference because you're expecting the sale on that, and then you up with a rent that's okay if you end up renting it, or you just sell it for low, and then you're like, we could have got 3 rentals with what we did in this time.
Why did we do this?
Yeah. I mean, as I was saying earlier, I mean, turnkey, I think, has become more interesting to me because it really is very passive. I mean, I consider turnkey to be pretty close to syndication, limited partner investing, as long as you have the whole setup. So how did you guys come to be really all integrated like this? Because in the beginning, I'm sure you didn't have it all figured out on like, hey, we're just going to be a turnkey company.
No, really did not have it. But like I said, after building our own rental portfolio, that's kind of when the light bulb went off. And it's like, okay, this is the value that we see in real estate. We knew the market. We were already managing. So kind of becoming a full service turnkey company was not the goal for us, right? Like, it was that concept was fairly unknown. I know REI Nation, and there were a couple of others like JWB that they were out there, but still on the newer-ish side. And because this was 15 years ago. Man, I'm aging myself here, but. And this was a long time ago. So the concept, we didn't really realize that we were building this full service turnkey company. We had already been managing our own portfolio.
Yeah.
So knowing that we were currently flipping, we're just going to pivot and flip on the rental side and focus this more towards investors. It just really made sense for us to continue to manage as we grew. And so that's kind of how it all happened. I really wish I'd love to say that we had it all mapped out and this was the end game, but it really was just only out of necessity. And we continued down that path, and it's worked out really well.
Yeah, I've talked to other turnkey providers, and a lot of times what they said is they started the same as you guys, like, hey, we're just doing this, we're doing great. And then their friends would see it and say like, hey, I'd like to do that too. And then the light bulb starts to go off. Did you have people that you knew saying like, hey, can I get some of those? What you're doing looks pretty good. Can you also just manage it so I don't have to deal with it? What was the kind of origin of saying like, hey, there's this moment, we're going to just do this for other people? Because as we were saying with the buyer, having buyers and having inventory, when you go off to start a new business, you want to hope like, hey, we know at least there's a few people out there who are going to want this if we do it for other people.
We did not have the people that came to us and was like, hey, I'm interested in this. I think you could manage this. We just really honestly saw the numbers, and I'll be very transparent. For the first year, we were flying investors. Any investor that was interested in talking to us. Yeah. Birmingham and Alabama is just ripe with a negative connotation. It has been for a very long time. So trying to get people to look and take Alabama seriously. But we were looking at the returns that these investors could potentially get. And you're talking about properties. Most of the properties that we were selling pre-COVID were under $100,000. And the returns were anywhere from 12 to 14% in the first year. So it's like, we're looking at these numbers and knowing this is a gold mine. How do we tell people about this? And it really wasn't people coming to us. It was us flying people to come see us, tour Birmingham, tour our properties. And so, it was that part of it was really tough, is really trying to put Birmingham on the map in regards to a rental hotspot. Because that hasn't always been the case. Now we've seen how it's grown, and we've seen that, Huntsville's been on, I don't know how many lists of places to invest, et cetera, fastest growing markets, all of that. I don't really need to sell Birmingham now, but back then that was really the biggest focus for us, was just trying to get people to see the potential here.
Yeah, and I would assume now, just because there's so much technology and like visibility on properties, that less people need to come, even if it was a town that they didn't know. A lot of people can just look at the numbers and say, hey, just
Right.
send me some pictures, look on
Yeah.
Google Maps at the block, and they're like, yeah. You're like, you guys want to come down? You're like, no, thanks, I'm fine. Just let's close the deal. A little bit different.
It's very different. It's very, very different. We used to have majority of our investors would fly out here before purchasing the properties. And now not so much. Like you said, the visibility is through the roof. We're having all pictures throughout the renovation process. So we have professional before photos taken, then the investors sent with all through the renovation process pictures if they want them. They don't have to have them professional after photos, videos. They just get handed everything. So there should not be a question as to what was done to the property or the current condition of the house. Yeah. And I think providing all of that and being as transparent as possible just gives investors more comfort to where they don't necessarily feel that it's essential to come and walk the property. But I'll have to be honest too, when we first started, investors wanted to come out just to make sure they weren't buying a cardboard box because they were able to purchase a 3-2 brick ranch house for $95,000. So I don't know how many investors I drove around and they were like, I just had to make sure that this was actually a house that I was purchasing.
It's not next to a gas station or something crazy like that.
Yeah, it's not a cardboard box, with a bunch of kittens in it or anything like that. I just wanted to make sure I was actually buying a property just because of the price points.
Yeah, and I mean, but the price points still make it really accessible, as we were saying before, for
Absolutely.
really anybody to get into it, especially with the deal. I mean, it sounds like, someone may think, oh, well, I could just do an FHA loan somewhere else and try to house hack. Yeah, you can, but then you're really going to not be making any money, So if you can figure out the way to get that 25% down, get that 5.5% rate, you're going to make money. And it's harder to make money now because rates are higher everywhere else.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, it is. And I mean, and just look at the difference. Like, look what I'm talking about what our average price point was pre-2020 compared to what it is now. And I mean, you've been in the real estate industry and been doing this podcast for so long that, looking over the past 85, 90 years, and that properties will continue to appreciate. Yep. Now, they're not going to appreciate at your 2021, 2022 rates. That's not going to continue to happen. And that in your Birmingham markets, you're going to see a steady 2 to 3% appreciation. It's not sexy, but it's stable. And so those investors that purchased with us 10, 12 years ago, man, they are really seeing the benefits. And the only way that you see the benefits of that is if you start buying early.
Yeah, and it's also adjusting people's thinking, short-term and long-term. Short-term thinking, hey, like, let's flip a house. And then, as we were saying, that wasn't fun, and we didn't get what we wanted out of it, and we could have done other things with the money that are more stable. But as you said, a lot of people fall into it just as you did when you got you guys get these rental properties, you're like, I mean, this is way easier. We did this stuff up front, and now people just hand us money every month, and we did the renovations, even though I'm sure, like you were saying, they're more lipstick at the time than what you do now, but they work. And if you don't try to rent it at the top of the market, you can still do modified renovations and see. Do you have a framework now? I mean, are you doing everything on all the renovations? Or are you looking for houses that are kind of all in the same disrepair? Or there's some that are, pretty okay because you just have good outreach on the direct to seller buying?
Yeah, it really depends. We're able to purchase some that do not need a ton of work. Now, we're still doing sewer scopes and having them inspected with third-party home inspections. And then we make sure that the investor, before they purchase it, gets a third-party home inspection as well. So we're still doing those things to make sure the property's in the condition in which we believe it is. Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. Not every property needs the amount of work. Like I said, I already talked about the roof, HVAC, if it's older than 5 years, if it's younger than 5 years, we're going to service it and make sure that it's in good working order, but we'll leave it. But if it's older than 5 years, we're going to make sure that we go ahead and replace it. Electrical, we make sure that it's 200 amp and there's no knob and tube or cloth wiring. And a lot of houses that are, 60s plus, they don't necessarily have that at times. So, a lot of the properties don't need the full amount of work. Our average renovation budget across all of our properties, so some of them need 100,000 and some of them need 10, but our average sits right at about 48.
Yeah. That makes sense. But you brought up a couple important things that can show people what you can miss if you just decide, hey, I want to buy something in Birmingham with an agent, but I'm never going to go there. They may not tell you to get a sewer scope. They may not give you any information that you have a Pacific, federal box, electrical box, and it's a fire hazard because you're just not going. And there's no pictures of basements and sewers online. You still have to do all those things. I did a sewer scope on that property in North Carolina, and they were like, well, nobody does that around here. I'm like, yeah, I don't care. Like,
I would do one on every house I ever purchased.
Yeah.
Yes,
guess what?
absolutely.
It was clay. It was all clay and falling apart. So they had to replace it. I mean, but these are things where you have the volume also so that your renovation costs would be lower than a normal one-off flipper, which is another advantage to running through the whole cycle with you guys.
Yes, absolutely. And we're able to also see that savings on the property management side too, as well. If you walk in any of our properties, it's going to be extremely boring because all of our walls are the same. The flooring's the same, granite countertops, the cabinets, everything looks exactly the same. And the reason for that is for your long-term maintenance. So whenever the tenants do have to vacate, or if there is some repair, our maintenance team already has all of the necessary paint colors, flooring, et cetera, to go ahead and address the repairs right then and there. So that's going to keep investors' costs down in the long term as well. So everything, like you said, because of the scale, we're able to drive down that price point.
Yeah, and you can get, the countertops that you like in bulk, like, huge bulk, and just know, because it's not like all the renters in the area in these 3 states are going to know each other and go over and say, hey, your house just looks like mine.
Yeah, yours it looks so familiar.
Yeah, right. I mean, it'd be funny if it happened. Like, wait a minute. But I mean, that's the point, when you're doing it. And going back to flipping, though, there's a difference from flipping 1 at a time. When you're flipping 10 at a time, those are all the same formula too. Then you're into the formula, and you guys are using a smart formula now to make sure that you can save money, pass that savings on along all the way through from cost to purchase to property management and CapEx, which is going to be extremely limited. As you were saying before, you never say never because you just never know when something's going to break. But generally, you should be pretty safe on CapEx.
Generally, yes, you should be pretty safe. Yeah. I always want to make sure I paint that because we do as much due diligence as we possibly can on the front end, but sometimes things do happen. Yeah.
Do you guys wait till you get the adjustment in taxes? Because there was one thing, I mean, I think in these 3 states, the taxes aren't huge, but like in a state like New Jersey, sometimes you just do like a nothing renovation. And of course the town just going to like put you up $5,000 and your cash flow would go away. So are you making sure that everybody knows what those new taxes are after the renovation? So that's fixed into the process?
So we base the projected property taxes on the area's millage rate and the post-sale price.
Yeah. And you've done $1 million, so you know these areas, so you can be pretty exact on it.
Know the areas. We know what the millage rate is. We can see what the property's taxed assessed value is currently, and then we know what we're going to sell it at. Now, that is not necessarily what the taxed appraised value is. However, we're trying to over project on the side of property taxes versus under project, because if we just did all of what it's currently assessed at, that wouldn't take into consideration any of the renovations.
Yeah.
And every tax adjuster can determine what they want to assess it at a different rate as well. Like some can see a $50,000 renovation and say, I think that added $100,000 to the value. And then some may think it's 30. But Alabama also did just pass a restriction on limiting the increase of property taxes year over year. So again, Alabama extremely landlord, homeowner friendly, and that they're doing those things to keep those costs down for homeowners.
Yeah, I mean, that obviously, we haven't touched on that, but being in a landlord-friendly state obviously gives more advantage to somebody who's now buying into a turnkey process. They don't have to do anything. However, if something happens, not only will you handle it, but it goes in their favor. It's not going to be difficult like it would be where I am. New Jersey and New York, very difficult, very tenant-friendly.
Yeah, you always want to target areas for rental property that are going to have local government policies and municipalities that want to work with the homeowner. That's always going to work in your favor, whether it be evictions, set outs, regaining possession, scams, squatter rights, all of those things will play a part in your overall property's performance.
Yeah, over the years, what are the biggest knocks on turnkey? I was thinking about, I asked about the taxes, because if I'm thinking back on just where people complain, whether it's it could be, completely the buyer's fault, which is often them just not doing a bunch of research. Taxes go up, of course, a repair, but that doesn't happen. And as you said, you're doing due diligence, you're expecting them to do due diligence. But is there anything that you would want to alert people to, if they're going to someone else or they're interested in turnkey, like, hey, heads up, this is something that you should know about just to protect yourself?
Man, that's a really good question. And I feel like I could talk for about 30 more minutes on just that.
Yeah.
So if I had to pick a couple of things. So when you are assessing the properties and you're looking at multiple providers, whether it be a full service turnkey company or just a flipper or whatever, you're looking at the pro formas. Make sure that the pro formas are created equal and that different pro formas are factoring in different things. And what I mean by that is that I've seen some that have lower interest rates to overinflate the return, or they're factoring in appreciation in your overall return. So it's like, wow, that return looks like it's 22%, but you're also factoring in an 8% year over year appreciated value. While appreciation is amazing, it is not a cash rate of return. So you're not going to get that in your pocket, where your pro forma, what you want to look at is just your net income over your capital, period. Just do that calculation. So when you're assessing the properties, look at that. Like you said earlier, landlord friendliness of the states. There are a handful, most of them are in the Southeast, handful of very landlord friendly states. See what those are. And then ask the property management questions. This is probably this and the myth that it's a get rich quick scheme, which it is not. Yeah. But we've talked a lot about that.
Decidedly not. Yeah.
It is 100% not, but it is a great vehicle to move in that direction, but it's not quick. So, but we've already kind of discussed that. But if you're looking at the longevity of your overall performance, it's not necessarily the property, it's the property management, whoever is handling your property management. So ask the questions. Ask, hey, what's your occupancy rate right now? Do you track that? What's your maintenance ratio? So what's your average maintenance ratio? How long does it take you to do a tenant turn? What's your average really move out cost? Like, asking those basic questions are going to tell you whether or not the property management company is tracking it. And if they're not tracking it, then that's not a great sign. How are you going to accurately project on how your property is going to perform under their management if they don't know what their portfolio averages are? Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Do you guys have a lot of repeat customers? Because I would think that in turnkey, once one goes well, it's like, let's just keep doing that. I mean, it just makes sense that it would be that type of business if you serve them well on one. And then again, what the buy-in is. It's pretty light compared to a lot of other things out there. There's no reason not to keep going with the same team.
Yeah, I mean, about 50% of our annual sales are from repeat investors.
Yeah,
absolutely. Awesome. Right. So, and most of our investors, though, will start with just the one. So our average portfolio is about 4 properties, and we've got a little over 2,100 under management. So when an investor comes in, they'll buy one and see how it goes for 6 months to a year, and then they'll come back and purchase a few more.
Is there somebody who has the most? Like, what's the most that one person has?
Our largest portfolio, I want to say it's a tie for 25. Don't let me lie, but I'm pretty sure that I've got 2 investors with 25 properties total portfolio. Not myself and a couple of other owners included outside of us.
Yeah, but as you were saying before, if you go into the process thinking like, hey, let me get one a year, everything starts going better because you're getting appreciation. You're also paying down, so you're getting higher ownership, and then you keep going. You're giving yourself more assets. I just like that the price point is accessible. And right now, the rates are comparatively much better. So by figuring out what price point works, if you're balancing between a renovation and a new build, you really have some options there in accessible price points that you couldn't buy your own house for. So it becomes a better investment, as we were saying before, for people who are just going to be what I call choice renters now, because it's just a smart move.
Right. And I mean, and like you said, you've got the option between the renovated and construction, but there are always going to be those risks. And so if you're deciding to do it on your own or partner with a turnkey, I mean, we also offer certain warranties. And so if you're looking at other turnkey providers, ask them what warranties they're going to. Are they going to stand behind any kind of renovation that they did? Or, we like, for example, we offer a 1-year lease warranty. So let's say worst comes to worst, it's rare, but your tenant goes into eviction in the first year. Well, we start paying your rent until we get that tenant out.
Yeah.
So making those newer investors a little bit safer. So hopefully they don't get scared away with the first blow up of a rental property is kind of what we like to focus on. And it makes comparing other turnkey companies a little bit easier when you ask those type questions as well.
Yeah, and I would think if we just look at the landscape of what's going on with housing in America, the projection for rental rates is going to go up. So even if your appreciation is, quote, slow compared to some of these insane areas, and you're appreciating 2 to 3% a year, if your rent percentage is also appreciating 5% each time there's a changeover, you're consistently just making more money each time. And it seems like there's going to be, we have a housing shortage. We need better rental properties. So you're really playing into what America needs now and also assisting investors at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Lindsay, is the best place for people to get in touch with you guys and find out more about Spartan at spartaninvest.com?
Yes. Yeah. Just check us out. And we've got a ton of information. We've got an investor education guide. We have market reports on all of the markets that we're in that breaks it down based on zip codes. It gets extremely detailed. If you're very bored and you just want something to read or go through, then we also have all of our available inventory online.
Yeah, and I think that's fun to look at, though, because you can start to see, hey, this is quality. I could see somebody living there. This is a good asset for me. And I think that makes it a little bit more transparent. Like you said, you want to get these people to understand it's a real house. Look it up on Google Maps. Usually when you look it up on Google Maps at a fresh renovation, you see what it used to look like. And that's even a more fun thing to me because you're like, oh, 123 Main Street. And then you go and you're like, oh, my gosh, it looks amazing.
Right.
That actually helps you and works in your favor now.
Yes, it is. It's always fun to go back and look at the Google Street Views too. They're a little bit more. They're better at updating them here recently, but yes, it's always entertaining.
Yeah, I'm sure one day soon we'll get to it where every day it somehow changes over, but it's more fun seeing.
You're going to get a live Google Street View. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah. And just before we hop off for the process, so people, if they make the call, they get in, they click the Let's Talk button, they'll do an intake. You'll find out what their goals are and then make sure they're qualified and then just start lining them up. And they can see the available inventory there, right?
Yes, they can see available inventory. So if they come to us, we'll pair you with one of our sales reps, that's going to walk you through all of our properties, talk to you about, the returns, what's your goal, and really kind of set you up for success and then really help take the process from there. And like I said, we're set up to be completely hands off. So we have somebody that's going to walk you through the closing process, the property management process, everything as seamless as possible.
And in terms of the overall units, those 2,100 under management, what's the state differential? I mean, do you have more in one state, the other between Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia?
Majority of them are in Alabama. Yeah. So Tennessee and Georgia were our second and third markets that we entered.
Yeah. And did you enter those markets because they behave similarly to where you are in Alabama? That's what I found a lot, that you don't want to just go and pivot to St. Louis or something. One, they're nearby, right. And two, they act similarly in the South, like the market you're in now.
Absolutely. So we try to target additional or new markets where we can hit multiple markets. Going into Chattanooga, Tennessee allowed us to dip into the North Georgia area where there's a lot of opportunity in your Rossville, Ringgold, Chattanooga, Atlanta, about an hour and a half, 2 hours away. And then from Chattanooga, our plan is to add on the service of Knoxville, which is very similar to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, which is a market college that we already are in. Yeah, college towns. So targeting those markets that behave very similarly to the ones that we have been successful in and ones that we can branch out as well.
Yeah. I think it kind of makes it fun for investors who like the process. Maybe they have one or two in Alabama and they're like, because the way that I think of it is I don't want to just go buy just a one-off on my own because I'm not going to know. But if you're in the turnkey cycle and you already like the provider and everything's going well, I'd probably be more interested. Well, let me just get an asset in another state just so I can start to build there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice that you have that opportunity for them as well.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of investors want to diversify, but don't want to deal with multiple property management companies as well.
Exactly.
So that's one thing we can check off as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure. I really enjoyed it. I like talking turnkey. It's just something that, as I've said in the beginning, each year it becomes a little bit more interesting to me. And so I really appreciate you spending the time.
No, I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. All right. That was Lindsay Davis. She's the CEO of Spartan Invest. You can find them at spartaninvest.com. I'm Jonathan Green. We'll see you next episode. Thanks for sticking around to the end so you can get a preview of who's coming up on episode 273 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And you may not know this, but there is an ESPN SportsCenter anchor who does a lot of stuff in real estate, and he's coming in hot next week. Gary Streisky, you see him every morning, and now you're going to hear him on the podcast next episode. We'll see you then.